Hi, I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to share with you, number one, why running records are one of my favorite literacy assessment tools, and number two, how you can analyze them really effectively in order to learn so much about what your readers can do already, what they can't do yet, and what their phonics knowledge is like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notified every time I post a brand new video about teaching literacy in K2. Okay, so first and foremost, what is a running record? In case you don't know already, a running record is just a record of how a student read a given text. I find that they're most helpful in like the earlier grades in primary or when kids, it could be older kids too, that are maybe having some trouble with decoding. It's just a good assessment and it doesn't take too long. I'll talk about how to fit them in a little bit later. It doesn't take too long and you can get a really good grasp on just different strategies and different phonics skills that a student knows or doesn't know. So you can take a running record on a blank sheet of paper. I cannot tell you how many times, because I do a lot of small groups, I can tell you how many times I've run out of running record forms or just not had one. And I just do it on a blank sheet of paper. It's totally doable. I'll talk a little bit about how to do that in a second. So this is what a form could look like. Okay, this is actually from the decodable text in the Learning at the Primary Pond Teachers Pay Teachers store. So you can do this with a decodable text. You can do it with a level text. Whatever you're doing, running records can be helpful. So this has the just the words in the text, and then it'll have like a column for counting up the errors and the self-corrections here. And then at the bottom, it like guides you in figuring out the self-correction rate as well as their accuracy rate. So basically what I do, and let me slide in a tip about how to fit this in, during every single small group, not every single, but during most small groups, I will take one running record of one child's reading. So if I see two small groups, I'll take one student from one group and one student from another group during that small group time and do a running record. As far as how to make time for it and what are the other kids doing, so you have your small group, everybody in your small group can still come to your table. You would just have like a basket of books or texts that they've read previously. The other kids read a text, reread a text of their choice. They get to choose from the bin. And then you have one like star student come sit right next to you, and then you have them read. It could be a new text or it could be a text that you've read just once with them already. You have them read the text, you take the running record. You don't have to have them read the whole text, especially not if like you work with older students. You could just have them read like 50 words or 100 words. That's fine. If you're working with readers who are reading really short books, you might have them read the whole text. Another thing I like to do, just as kind of a side note, is I like to ask a couple of comprehension questions about the text, because not only do I want to know, can this kiddo decode the text or what phonics skills are missing, I also want to know how is their comprehension. That's a really important part too. So just a side note there, I might put that in there. But anyway, this is the form. And as far as how I take the running record, I'm just listening to them read and I'm making marks on my sheet. I do not only make notes when they do something wrong, because if you're like just sitting there and the child makes a mistake and you like make a mark, then they're going to notice that you're making a mark and they're like, oh no, what did I do wrong? They may still notice, you know, because you're like writing more if they make a mistake, but generally speaking, I like to just keep making notes and kind of make it like not obvious and they're just reading along and you're doing your thing. So I'm not going to take it on here just because it would be too small and you couldn't see what I was doing. I'm just going to show you like the first word in this little decodable text is Shelly. So it says Shelly here on the page. And if the child reads it correctly, actually, let me not draw that. Does not have a line over it. If the child reads it correctly, then I'm just going to make a check. Or you just do this. Okay. So number one, I'm trying to track for myself where we are in the text. In case the child reads quickly, we're just making a line over the word. And then when they get to a word and they make a mistake, then what I do, like let's say the word was bridge and this word is on the page. It doesn't have to be on the page. You could literally just write bridge, just like, you know, just like it is here. You could have a blank thing right here And then when the child reads the word correctly, you just do a check. And then when they get to a word and make a mistake, you write the real word and then you write what they said above it. So anyway, when they get here and they make an error, we do one little tick mark here where they made the error in that column. And then we write the word that they said instead of the real word, so the miscue above it. So let's say that the real word was bridge, okay? And they said the word brush. Now this gives us so much valuable information. We don't, however, analyze it until after the running record is over. You know, I'll just have like once a week where I'll take all the running records that I've done and I'll really sit down and kind of like look at them. You get faster at it as you go. However, I don't want to spend that time while the child is with me because I need to get on to the rest of my small group. So anyway, let's say they made an error. This is what we do. Now, let's say that they self-correct. They fix it, and then now they read bridge. So you can do this, or you can go like this and do an SC. The SC just means self-correction. There's some other marks. Your school may have like a particular system that they want you to use. If a child goes back and like reruns, they go to the beginning of the sentence, I'll usually use like this. I think that's most of the ones. Oh, if they skip a word entirely, you could do like, if the word is red, you could just do a dash above it, or you could circle the word. Again, your school may have a system that they want you to use, but really the main purpose of this is so that you know when you go back how the child did with their reading, what mistakes they make, did they self-correct, all that good stuff. I will say, by the way, too, that, you know, I feel like I'm a pretty good kid watcher and I feel like I know my students well. But coming back to these running records and really looking at them and being like, oh, you know, they didn't do this or they can do this, there's always so much information. And I don't always pick up on that just from reading with them, you know, like in the context of small group. Like, yes, I get some information, but sometimes things on these running records really surprise me. So this is why I highly recommend doing them. And again, I recommend that structure of like do one per small group per day. And then you'll get through your whole class. If you have like 20 kids in your class, I don't know, you get through it in like 2 weeks-ish, all of the kids. Okay, so now let's talk about what you do with the running record after it's done. The first thing that you are going to want to do is you are going to want to calculate the accuracy rate. And here on this example, there's the formula for it. So you would just take the number of words that are correct, like let's say they were, I don't know, like 15 words correct, and let's say that there were 20 words total. Sometimes running records forms will have the total words on them, like we put ours on there. So you take 15 divided by 20, okay? You get whatever that answer is. I'm not going to try to do that math on top of my head. And then you multiply it by 100. Whatever this number is, times 100, and then you get whatever your accuracy percent is. So that will help you know the number of words that they read correctly. And this is a good indicator of whether this is like a good fit book for the kiddo. It does depend on what level, but generally speaking, if I have a kid that's reading a book with like 98% accuracy or above, it doesn't mean that there's no room for improvement, but it does mean that this is probably something they can read on their own. Now, if the kids are anywhere like 90, 92 to 95, 96%, then I feel like, okay, it's probably a good book for us to read in small group because they're still missing some stuff and I can provide supportive teaching. Now, if their accuracy is reading, or if their accuracy on a text, a certain type of text is below 90%, or if for older readers below 95%, that's a good indication that A, you might not want to use this level or difficulty level of text, or B, you just might want to provide some more supportive teaching, like pre-teaching certain words so that kids can be successful. Because what you'll find is if kids are reading at pretty like low accuracy levels, is that they're not going to be able to comprehend the text, which is the whole point of reading, because they don't know what the words say. So that affects their fluency, their comprehension, everything. So that's why it's not bad for kids to like struggle with text, but we don't want them constantly reading texts that are like way over their heads or really, super difficult. Because then they're just not comprehending it. Now that said, it's still good to give kids practice, especially your lower students with great grade level text. So again, you would just provide the supportive teaching, maybe break up the text, do some pre-teaching of words so that they can be successful. We don't have to keep grade level text from our like lowest students. That's not necessary. We just vary the amount of support that we give them. Okay, so that was kind of a tangent. Let's get back to our running record discussion. One big reason why I love analyzing running records after I've taken them for my kiddos is because it helps me know like how's their blending, how's their chunking word abilities, are they reading all the way through the word, what phonics skills do they know. If you see this example error, so bridge is the real word and brush was the mistake that they read, if they didn't self-correct it, it tells me a couple of things. Number one, we're pretty good with this BR initial blend. Okay, they got that. They were attending to the beginning of the word. But the bad news is that they just kind of guessed, right? They saw the BR. Maybe they thought about what made sense, depending on what the text was. Maybe not. But they didn't pay attention to like this vowel situation or, you know, the ending digraph here, the DGE here. So I might have to dig a little deeper. If I notice on the running record that there are, you know, other situations or other examples where they only read the beginning of the word, then that to me is an indicator that this kiddo is just not really digging into words and they're just reading the beginning and maybe like guessing the end of the word. Now, let's say that this is the only example where they read the beginning of the word and didn't read the rest of it. If this is the only example, then it could just be that the kiddo didn't know this DGE pattern and therefore ended up guessing, right? So that's not a good behavior, but it does give us information because if this phonics pattern is appropriate for the child, we're going to want to go over this pattern with them so that they can decode it in the future. So just so much information that you can get from analyzing these. You can also, because you'll make notes about this, note, is a child constantly asking for help? Because that's not a good behavior either. Are they going back and rereading a sentence frequently? Are they self-correcting enough? Generally what I've heard is that you want kids to self-correct 1 out of every, we want a self-correction rate of 1 to 3. So the way that you would like calculate the self-correction ratio is we would take the number of errors. Let me write this out for you. We would take the number of errors plus the number of self-corrections. So we take that and then we would divide that number by the number of self-corrections, and then we get this, whatever that mystery number is, and it becomes a 1 to blank. So the answer of all this goes here, and again, 1 to 3 is what we hope to see. And the reason for that is because if kids are only correcting like 1 out of every 15 errors, for example, that's a good indication that they're not monitoring. Maybe they're not paying attention to the letters. Maybe they're not paying attention to the meaning of the text. Like, even if their phonics knowledge is decent, like if they're saying words and mispronouncing them or just, you know, mixing up their phonics patterns and they don't read something correctly, they're not noticing, hey, this has nothing to do with the text, and they just keep reading. So that's why we want their self-correction rate to be relatively, you know, close to 1 to 3, simply because that means that they're paying attention to their reading and they're trying to fix things when they can. Okay, so I think that's all that I wanted to share with you about running records. Again, I recommend building them into your small group routine, but you may have some sort of assessment, benchmark assessment throughout the year where you sit down with kids one-on-one and do something more in depth, maybe a longer text, maybe multiple levels. That is really valuable too, but just doing it on an ongoing basis, you will get faster at it if you're brand new to it. So yeah, I don't know if I've asked you this yet. If I have, forgive me, but if you do use running records already, would you leave me a yes in the comments? Would love to see who already uses them. And then if you have any questions about using them, also feel free to drop those in the comments. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you. I actually have some blank running records for you, some forms that you can use with any text. Those are free. They're part of my guided reading toolkit. You can look for the link in this video to download that. Again, you'll get like blank running record forms and lots of other great tools for small group in kinder, first, or second grade. Again, I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.